We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Tuesday, September 3rd here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and this is News Generation. Today, we're joined by Chiska Dainhong.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! And Brooke Prince.
Hello, nice to be here.
Lovely to have you. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. And like always, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online. We start with American food manufacturing company Heinz's newly launched canned spaghetti carbonara. While the company's meals director hailed the product as the perfect solution for a quick and satisfying meal at home, Italian cooks expressed outrage over the product, calling it horrendous and accusing it of destroying Italian culture and cuisine, with one even comparing it to cat food. Now, back here in the country, confectionery companies are stepping up to ease the financial burden on consumers by reducing prices. Orion, one of the largest players in the market, has announced additional discounts on products that haven't seen a price hike in over a decade. Meanwhile, Hete is set to lower the prices of its biscuit products by an average of 6.7% starting next Monday. Eyes are on whether more companies will join this trend and offer similar price cuts. Finally, we stay in Korea and wrap up with a story from a recent video on the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency's official YouTube channel that has captured the public's attention. The video, a surveillance camera footage, shows a man cycling past the Mapo-daegu Bridge who suddenly snatched a bag belonging to a woman who was about to jump off the bridge. A police car arrived after receiving a report about someone attempting to jump and immediately chased after the thief. However, he managed to slip away into a narrow alley. Then suddenly, a motorcyclist sped up after the thief and ultimately helped the police catch him. The suspect has since been taken into custody while the woman was safely rescued by emergency workers. So here in the studio, I want to ask you guys, this is a very interesting and attention-grabbing video. What are your thoughts on this hero and also the thief?
Well, I was definitely on the edge of my seat looking into the story and watching that video all over again. It really illustrates the two opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to human nature, right? You have the person who was willing to take advantage of someone at their lowest point in life, and then you have a person who, out of the goodness of his heart, just wanted to help. So I found myself, when I was watching the video, going from being just really disgusted and disappointed by the actions of the suspect to very touched and impressed by the actions of this heroic motorcyclist. I think a lot of people in these situations, it's like the bystander effect. They think, oh, well, the police will take care of it, it'll be fine. Or perhaps they're worried about their own safety because, like the motorcyclist said in his interview afterward, he didn't know what kind of crime this man committed, but he figured since he was running, he must have done something wrong. But he didn't know, so he could have been violent, and so he risked his own life to intervene and help, and I think that kind of bravery deserves a lot of recognition.
Right, especially in this immediate and urgent situation. It's really hard for people to actually have the courage and step in and help the police to actually chase the thief. So a clap and applaud to the heroic actions of the motorcycle rider. Now, what are your thoughts on this footage, Cheska?
You know, I was most certainly impressed by the courageous act of the rider, as Brooke talked about, that intervened. And yes, as a police officer, their commitment and, you know, drive and dedication to their job is incredibly laudable. But the cyclist, I think, for him to step in, I think was another layer of act of courage without knowing what he was getting involved in. And it was out of his duty, right? And even more so, I'm truly glad they were able to rescue the woman who was trying to commit suicide. I think that sort of all the things that happened, kind of that's the perfect knot.
It was a happy ending.
It was a happy ending.
All around happy ending.
Right. And meanwhile, the motorcycle rider received a certificate of commendation from the Seoul Mapo police station for his brave actions. And that was our news feed for this Tuesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day by taking a look at the screen.
Animals have always held a special place in our hearts. From our loyal companions at home to the majestic creatures that symbolize strength, courage, and wisdom, they've become a part of our everyday lives. But recently, a fascinating trend has been on the rise in Korea. These furry, feathered, and sometimes scaly friends are becoming mascots of not just sports teams, but of universities, police stations, fire stations, and even corporate offices.
Right. I guess some of our viewers might have wondered why we did this horseback riding motion when we started
All of
our
a sudden,
episode
right?
today. That's because we're going to talk about animals. So we're going to start our discussion today with a really light question. I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Do you guys like animals, and do you encounter animals often in your daily lives?
I think the proper question is, do you love animals?
Love animals.
And as we did the motion in the beginning, for me, they are horses, obviously.
Right.
As I proudly demonstrated during the episodes of the Keyrings, it was a nickname given to me a while back, and I grew up in New Zealand. So I saw a lot of sheep and horses, so I'm very close to them, and I ride as much as I can, travel specifically to ride. But the more important thing is, I think animals teach more about you than about how you interact with them. So they taught me a lot about life and leadership, so they're definitely my spirit animals.
Right, so Cheska loves horses.
Yes.
And if you're a regular viewer of Newsden, you will know that I have a cute puppy named Ambi. She appeared via VCR several times on Newsden. So I'm an animal lover as well. And I know that Brooke is also a huge fan of animals, right?
I am. As a proud cat mom, I am definitely an animal lover. I talk about my cat often. His name is Daffy.
Daffy.
And he's turning 13 this year, so I actually brought him with me to Korea. But the story of how I got him is kind of a sad one. I saw that someone posted online that they were going to leave a box of kittens on the side of the road. And so I immediately got in my car and drove to the location, and thankfully there were more cars that showed up than there were kittens in the box. So every single kitten went to a good home, including Daffy, but he was separated from his mom the same day that he was born, so he required a lot of special care, and I think that's why we have such a strong bond. But he's far from the only animal I've had in my life.
Right.
Like Cheska, I also love horses. I've been riding since I was little. We also had hamsters, dogs, turtles, you name it, I've probably raised it. So needless to say, I am an animal lover, and I'm very excited about our topic today.
Right, so all of us are animal lovers, so I think we're kind of like the perfect group or combination to talk about this topic today.
Diverse array of animals.
Right. And going a bit deeper, another reason why we chose to talk about this topic is because we're also seeing not only an increase in pets here in Korea, but more animals becoming mascots that symbolize certain regions or institutions across the country. So could you give us some examples, Cheska?
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you that love dogs, for Korea, we have 삽살개 along with 진도, which is listed as one of the national treasure. And this proud cutie actually works with the officers in Dokdo Island of South Korea. And since 1992, every 2 years, they would dispatch 삽살개 to Dokdo. And it's quite meaningful, if you think about it, to have a national treasure, guard dog, actually protect one of the most historically disputed region in the history, so Dokdo Island. And just like the White House had dogs, so did the Blue House before it became a public property, the so-called first dogs. And even back in 2018, North Korea gifted South Korea 풍산개 as a symbol of good faith.
Right.
And apparently a few years back, a stray cat walked into the Blue House and sort of grabbed the attention of many officers and people that were coming, and kind of became a mascot, and was nicknamed 흑임자 for its like black spots, which basically means black seed powder.
So cute.
So there have been definitely many examples of animals being a mascot here in South Korea.
Right, and besides what Cheska mentioned, we're actually seeing more mascot animals in the institutions or places that we visit on a daily basis, right, Brooke?
That's right. There are many different mascots that you can find in Korea, frequenting places like college campuses, cafes, or even police stations. Now, starting with cafes, this is a picture of my friend and I at the Cafe 413 project in Yeoksam. And as you can see, we've got a little friend. So this cafe has two famous mascots that are always waiting out front. They're like a little welcome committee, a welcome cat committee, if you will. And it's almost like they know that this is the photo zone, right? They're always sunbathing, just waiting there to pose with you. They are just adorable, and I always enjoy going there and giving them some attention first before I go into the cafe.
How could you ignore them?
You can't. That's why they sit there. They know that you're going to come up and pet them. So that's one example of a mascot at a cafe. In terms of other places, let's go to police stations. So a search and rescue dog named Yak from the Busan Metropolitan Police Agency recently received a plaque of merit for his contributions to several notable cases, including one recently where he helped to locate an elderly man with dementia after he'd gone missing for 6 days in the heat wave. So very good work there. Now, Yak has been dispatched 41 times in the last 3 years, and he is the first police search and rescue dog to receive a plaque of merit. So congratulations to Yak. Of course, he is a dog, so a plaque probably isn't that appealing. So they did get him a specially made cake and also his favorite duck jerky.
That's the best gift for him.
That's the best gift, right? In terms of other famous mascots, there's also Junyangi from the Seoul Jungnang Police Station and Noyangi at the Seoul Nowon Police Station, very cutely named. And these are widely known amongst the police officers and civilians. Essentially what they do is they all band together to take care of the mascots. So I think it's wonderful. I've loved introducing you to these mascots today.
Right. So our panelists introduced various examples of animals serving as mascots or symbols of certain areas or institutions. Now there must be a reason why we're seeing a rise in these mascot animals. Could you guys briefly tell our viewers what are some positive aspects, and also there is negative aspects to everything. So having these animals as mascots or symbols.
Yeah, I mean, I think the positive aspect is pretty much the first reaction that we had when we saw these cute animals.
Adorable.
We just love them.
Right.
The friendly image aspect, obviously. It lowers the hurdle for some people to approach, and it sometimes becomes an incentive for people to learn more about the organization. Just to give you an example, when I was preparing for our episode today, I did some research, and there was this video about the daily life of canine working in like special forces. And because I just wanted to learn more about the dog, I actually indirectly learned a lot more about police work and like the field work as you're following this cute dog around. So it also can be quite touching when they take on stray animals, like Brooke mentioned, and becomes an unintentional mascot. However, there are some very sad and unfortunate cases as well. It was reported about 4 months ago, people abuse these animals for the sake of popularity or just out of pure malice.
Right.
And there is a goose called Kongusu, which is a mascot for Konkuk University. And a man in his 60s out of nowhere just striked a goose, but he wasn't charged with anything. So there are some instances where it can be very negative.
Right. As much as a lot of people appreciate these animals, some are actually causing harms, like the example of Kongus that Cheska just mentioned. Now, what could be some other pros and cons, Brooke?
Well, as an animal lover, like we've established, I am in full support of the mascots. I think that they are great stress relief, especially in a place like Korea where people struggle to find that work-life balance. If you're having a busy day at work and you walk outside and you get to see a cute animal, how great is that, right? But there are some people who don't love animals that much. They might have phobias or allergies. My grandmother, for example, she is so afraid of cats that if she even sees one on the TV screen, she will run screaming from the room. So there are people like that, and for them, I think having mascots around could be a little stressful. Also, like I mentioned earlier, it's a group that's taking care of a mascot together, which means that you have to trust every person to have the proper knowledge to take care of that animal. So you might run into problems like people accidentally feeding it something that it shouldn't have and things like that. So those are some of the pros and cons, but I think overall, mascots are a great thing.
Right. And we've actually seen a rise in mascot animals in Korea over the past few years. I want to ask our panelists, could it be tied to Korea's changing perception of animals because they're being viewed more like a companion these days?
Yeah. I want to bring an interesting perspective, which is that I think Korea always had a long tradition of using animals as mascots, because if you think about it, for instance, Hodori for the 88 Olympics. And then I did a little bit of research, and for city councils like Goyang시, they use 고양이.
That's so cute.
Cat, because cat is 고양이.
고양이, yeah, exactly. And for instance, Seoul, we have Haechi, which is Mr. Character, but for Incheon is a spotted seal, Ulsan is a whale. So I think we've always been familiar with using animals, but the only difference is actually bringing real life animals into the scene where people can interact and like see and actually touch. So perhaps with the growing pet households, the idea of bringing animals are much closer into our lives.
Even inside institutions.
Exactly. And bridging that kind of emotional and physical gap can be also seen as something that can be very new.
Is this also what you think, Brooke?
I do think that Korea's perceptions of pets have changed over time. One question I do get from people back home is, do Koreans really eat dog meat? Because in America, that is an absolute no-no. So I was also surprised to find out about that part of Korean history. But I'm always happy to report that that seems to be a thing of the past. I think that Korea's attitudes towards animals are changing every day. The one thing I wish there would be a little more progress on is pet-friendly households. We do have a lot of pet households, but not a lot of pet-friendly housing. For me, I've been rejected by probably 20 real estate agents, the moment I walk through the door and say, I have a cat, they say no. By default, a lot of contracts have a clause that say that you cannot have pets. So that's one thing that I think would make it a little easier for pet owners in Korea.
Right, so definitely this topic has given us more to think about Korea's pet culture in general. Now, we've mostly focused our discussion on the situation in Korea. So to expand this, we also asked our viewers whether any animals represent regions or institutions in their country. And here's what 3 of them said. If we look at the comments, the Power Ranger 200 says in Vancouver, there is a lot of mascots like Finn the killer whale mascot from the Vancouver Canucks hockey team. Jack Thompson 8873 says, here in Birmingham in England, our representative animal is a bull outside the shopping mall. There is a huge statue of it. Sylvian Mujiki official says there are mascots for many schools, sports teams, and brands in the USA. For example, Mug Root Beer uses a bulldog as its mascot. So the comments from our viewers show how there have been a lot of animal-based mascot characters, but we're actually seeing more real animals being serving as mascots and symbols, especially here in Korea. So for more and to check out whether this is prevalent in other countries, we're going to invite a millennial living in Australia to our talks right after this break. Right, so today we're joined by Alexandra Phiem, a millennial living in Australia, and she's also brought her dog Waffle for our interview today. Welcome, Alexandra and Waffle, to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining, both of you. So our first question for you, Alexandra, is are there any animals in Australia that serves as mascots for schools, local institutions, or community organizations?
Oh, we have mascots for everything. And usually in Australia, they are like Australian animals. So we have a lot of Australian flora and fauna that makes us so unique. So you'll find kangaroos, echidnas, platypus. I mean, obviously in 2000, Sydney hosted the Olympics. And at the Olympics, we had those iconic mascots. So we had Ollie and Sid, Millie and Lizzie. So they were, oh my goodness, a platypus, a kookaburra, an echidna, and also a frill-necked lizard. So we had some unique array of animals that we had as our mascots. But then also our sport has a lot of mascots as well. So we love AFL in Australia. And my team is Essendon. So our mascot is a mosquito. So they might not always be cute little fuzzy animals or anything. Sometimes they're just everyday things that you see. We also have a crow as a mascot for another football team. And, you know, crows are great, but they're not a kangaroo. So we like to be diverse, but you'll find them everywhere.
You know, mosquito is probably the most shocking thing I've ever heard being used as a mascot. But here's the question that leads up to it. Why do you think certain animals such as platypus or all the animals that you mentioned become so popular as mascots in your country? Are there any like cultural or historical reasons behind these choices?
Well, look, we have a very rich and it's a big tapestry of history in Australia. And one of the big things that we're proud of are our animals. And sorry, mine is just about to run away. He's heard something interesting. But we really love our animals. We have such unusual species. And so why not celebrate the weird things that we have that make us so unique? And they really are incredible. Kangaroos are so beautiful. Echidnas, even though they look scary, they're actually just gorgeous. And I mean, who wouldn't want to cuddle a quokka? So yeah, just it sort of made sense. And of course, kids love it too. So it's an added benefit.
Well, I have to say this is probably the happiest I've been doing an interview. I'm sad that Waffle ran away before my question, but our last question for you is, what do you think are the benefits of having animals as mascots or symbols?
There are a lot of benefits. I mean, obviously, starting off with, they're really great to market. So you can, I mean, if you have a look at our Olympics, for example, but any of these sporting events that have an animal as a mascot, or I mean, any event really. You can have a fair, you can have a school event. They're just so easy to make plushy animals, print them on a t-shirt, have them as the big poster on the wall. They're so easy to recognize. They're also, as I said, they're great with children. If it's a little puppy or something, who wouldn't want to have a picture next to a puppy or wear a little puppy hat? But yeah, they're also just fantastic to shape the culture. So with Australia, you really do think of Australian animals as part of our culture. So you'll think of things like a kangaroo, but then there are negatives. So kangaroos are very cute from far away. They are not cute when they're up close and personal. So people that might not realize that they are fast, muscly, and can punch you, they will try and interact with them. And so that's a downside. But everything else, they really have, you know, the pros outweighs the cons with that for sure.
Indeed. All right, Alexandra and Waffle, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Waffle's a bit shy now.
I'm imagining a plush mosquito now.
Well, that was our NewsGen's discussion on Korea's mascot animal culture, from animal-themed mascot characters to real-life animals serving as symbols and mascots of regions and institutions. Now, that's all the time we have for today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Chester Dain-hong.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brooke Prince.
Thank you. It was so fun today.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.